The Jets just dropped the 90-minute documentary on Breece Hall and his recovery from a torn ACL. Let's talk about it. And well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Wa2K99. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch these videos. So, first thing I want to do quickly is apologize for not being able to do the Wednesday night show this week. I've been sick basically for the last 4 days, took the day off from work. Voice is better than it was yesterday, but still not feeling well enough to go out. But on the other hand, it did give me a chance today to watch the Breece Hall documentary, which the New York Jets just released. So it wasn't all bad that I wasn't able to go to work today. But there were a few things about Breece Hall and about this whole situation with his recovery that I learned, and we're going to talk about those through the course of this video. But I wanted to kind of summarize the documentary, some things that really stood out to me. So the video starts with Jets trainers Bobby Daplin and David Zafalato talking about the nature of the injury, how Breece tore his ACL in Denver, Colorado on, really it was a cut, running really fast and the sudden stop. It was really a non-contact injury. And it's really disappointing because, he was really on his way to being the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he would have won it over Garrett Wilson. Many Jets fans share that very same opinion. But it was really, the overall documentary was a lot about Breece's recovery, talking about the rehab process and mixing it in with his development as a football player. Growing up in Wichita, going to college in Iowa, the draft process, and so on. But the surgery took place in November of 2022. It's very interesting, that you see he gets the question, I think, from one of the trainers, I believe it was, would you rather have Derek Carr for 4 years or Aaron Rodgers for 1? And Breece didn't really give a definitive answer, but he really seemed to be contemplating it. I thought that was pretty funny considering what happened. But he begins the rehab process on one of those anti-gravity treadmills, and I can tell you, as a runner, I wouldn't mind working out on one of those sometimes. But the early part of his rehab process, pretty straightforward: leg presses, kettlebell squats, doing a lot of balance work, really working on the stability. I've heard from people who have ACL injuries that the biggest issue, the first 90% is not as bad, but it's getting that last 10%, that elite level. That's what tends to be the most challenging. So first they're working on the stability before they get into the heavy running. But then it talks about his family background growing up in Wichita, Kansas. And I don't think I really knew that Barry Sanders was from Wichita, who is, in my mind, the greatest running back that I've ever seen play the game. And they actually have Barry Sanders football field in Wichita. And Breece, growing up, had some chances to play on that field. It's not a very pretty field, doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but the fact that it is named after Barry Sanders, that makes it special right there. But it was Andy Roy, coach of the Bears, which was one of his grammar school teams. It was Andy Roy who took Breece from being a quarterback, but when Coach Roy got his hands on Breece, he saw the potential in Breece becoming a running back. He moved him over there, and as soon as he saw it, he said to his staff, and this quote was repeated twice, "This kid's going to be playing Sundays." What a prophet Andy Roy would prove to be. So then it cuts back to the modern time, talking about Breece's relationship with the training staff. You can see he's pushing a lot of weight sleds, doing that, and you can see these rehab processes are not like a smooth incline up. It's good day, it's bad day, it's good day, it's bad day, but hopefully the good days start to outnumber the bad. But you saw several times in this documentary, Breece was feeling fatigued, he was feeling frustrated that he couldn't do more than he wanted to. He even said to himself that he felt like he was out of shape at times. Just because he hadn't been able to work the way that he wanted to. But then we go back to the background at Wichita Northwest High School, Coach Martin. And Coach Martin really had an interesting way of coaching Breece. He really held him out of varsity games until the very end of his sophomore season. They had several running backs ahead of him on the depth chart, but he inserted Breece against Derby, a very good team in Kansas. And it was interesting that Coach Martin said Breece really needed to develop the other parts of being a running back. Not just running the ball, but blocking, hitting the weight room relentlessly, really applying himself with max effort every day. And I thought that was very interesting. And I don't think it was because Breece didn't care or Breece didn't want to commit himself, but Breece was an excellent basketball player too. I really don't think he had committed himself one way or another yet to being a football player or a basketball player. But these football coaches, he was very blessed to have such great coaching, and they saw the potential of Breece Hall as a running back, and I think they saw it before he did. And once they really communicated that to him, I think that's when Breece really started to commit himself to being the best running back he could possibly be. So credit to Coach Roy, credit to Coach Martin, without a doubt. So then we go back to April, pushing the sled again. You start to see a lot of the technology come out, all this 3D analysis that I can't even begin to get into. But looking at the strength in the left knee versus the right knee, I mean, if you look at a movie like, say, Brian's Song, when Gale Sayers is coming back from the ACL and it's just a straight leg extension exercise as opposed to all the things that they have nowadays, man, modern medicine's come a long way. And then it talks about his time at Iowa State, and this was one of the more interesting parts, I thought, of the documentary. Breece spent some time talking about getting recruited, and Iowa State was one of the first colleges to reach out to him, because initially Breece wasn't reached out to all that much. But once Iowa State reached out, then these other schools came along, like Baylor and Florida and Tennessee, Georgia, Notre Dame, some really good schools. But Breece never really understood, as a native of Kansas, why Kansas and K-State never really recruited him until after these other schools did. And Breece took that personally. He wanted to be a priority, and that is something I really learned about Breece in this documentary. He wants to be valued, and he wants to be prioritized. When the time comes for that second contract, keep that in mind. So from there, he decided to go with Iowa State. His mom was certainly in favor. Loved the family atmosphere. And it was that game against West Virginia where he really started to stand out. And that was another situation. Breece really values responsibility, because early on with Coach Matt Campbell, it was a situation where he might get redshirted, he might be the starting running back. And I think the more responsibility Breece Hall has placed on him, the better he's going to be. More on that later at the end of the video. But he wound up setting an NCAA record, 24 straight games with a rushing touchdown. Unbelievable. Then go back to May, working with Coach Mike Nicolini. This is where the sprinting starts in the rehab process. And they actually clocked him at running 21 plus miles an hour, 21.01. Now, like I said, I'm training for a 5K right now. If I hit 9 miles an hour, I feel like I'm really burning it, okay? So to be running 21, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Then we talk a little bit about the draft process. He was the number one running back, consensus number one running back in the whole draft class. A lot of people thought he was going to go in the first round. A whole lot of us did. I didn't really think that the Jets were going to get him. I didn't think it was a possibility. Plus, Michael Carter was coming off a very successful rookie season. I felt the Jets had a lot of needs where they didn't need to prioritize taking a running back. But they do decide to trade up, and 2 spots up, and it proved to be a fantastic decision because they had a good running back room, and it became a great running back room when they added number 20 into the mix. Drafted 36 overall, announcement made by Darrelle Revis. And then we go back to the rehab in June. He started to make the cuts, running in not just in a straight line, but using the heavier weights, squatting tons and tons of weight. But you could still see there was some fatigue, there was some strain, because at this point he knew OTAs were coming up, minicamp was coming up, the regular season was coming up. He knew he had to work through that. He knew he had to. Then you get into July with the OTA, signing some autographs. He's putting that uniform on for the first time. And man, the elation on his face when he had the chance to run out onto that field and run in front of fans, you could tell it meant something to him. Then they just skipped straight to September, 2 days out, 2 days out from that first game, talking about, he almost wants to get hit that first time because that's when it's going to feel real. You could do all the drills, all the practicing, all the squats, all the sprints, all of that, but nothing makes up for getting hit by another team in that first game. And we saw in week 1 against Buffalo on Monday Night Football, broke off several long runs, and was really the most dynamic player the Jets had on the field that night. And that's what led to really a fantastic week 1 victory. But I really find, thinking about the timing of this release, because a lot of us knew for a little while that there would be a Breece Hall documentary coming out. And I find it interesting that this was released on a Thursday, and it's been, I think, 2 days now since Coach Robert Saleh said Breece Hall is no longer on a pitch count, meaning there's no restrictions, no restraints, nothing at all. And in a situation where Dalvin Cook has been, to say the least, a disappointment, where Michael Carter is really the third down running back, and the Jets are about to go to Denver to face one of the absolute worst defenses in football, I don't think it is any coincidence that this documentary dropped right before the Denver game and right after Robert Saleh said there's no more pitch count, meaning Breece can take even more responsibility on. There's no more pitch count. This is going to be a very interesting week. I think Breece is going to get at least 20 touches this week. I feel that confident in what we're going to see on Sunday. This is no coincidence. This is all happening for a reason, and I am very excited to see what the offensive game plan looks like against Denver this Sunday afternoon. Well, those are my thoughts on Breece, the road back. Let me know your thoughts. Put them right down there in the comments. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.